After my week-long vacation in the Stygian Abyss, I still feel like doing some more dungeon crawling. Ultima Underworld 2? Not yet. Maybe something a little more simple. Something I haven't put much time into. Dungeon Hack, released in 1993 by Strategic Simulations Inc. and developed by Dreamforge Entertainment Inc. Pretty good name for a game company back then, but they worked on and released several games from 1990 to 2001, a few of them being Ravenloft, Strahd's Possession, Ravenloft, Stone Prophet, and Menzo Berenzan. Yeah, that same Menzo Berenzan that Drizzt Do'Urden from the R.A. Salvatore books calls his home. Or used to call his home at least, but all three games were based on the advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition rule set, and ones I haven't really spent much time in, but will in the future. Hopefully. Dreamforge are probably best known for Sanitarium, a very good, very unique point-and-click adventure game released in 1998, and one I had the pleasure of playing about 2 years ago on Halloween. If you're a fan of point-and-click adventure games, it's a must-play, especially if you dig its visuals. But anyways, on to Dungeon Hack. The game is based on the advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd edition rule set, just like the previous games I mentioned. If you ever played games like Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and Icewind Dale like I have, you'll be right at home here. So let's take a look at the character creator. You can choose a predefined character if you want, but you'll most likely want to create your own character, and only one character. Dungeon Hack is a solo adventure, no parties allowed. You can reroll for stats as much as you like, but it's got an interesting feature where you can just outright max any stat you want, which is kind of cheaty? Well, probably, but I kind of like the freedom Dreamforge gives you here. I promise the stat spread for my cleric character is legit though, honest. Rerolling is actually pretty generous. But other than that, creating a character is pretty straightforward. After you're done choosing whatever you like, gender and race and all that, you can choose a difficulty or click custom. Clicking custom brings us to this screen, where the game got its name, I'm sure. You can customize your dungeon however you want, so if there's a feature you don't like, you can always turn it off. Here we go. I dislike illusionary walls in this game, because without a spell or an item, and a level has illusionary walls in order to continue, then the game becomes bang your body against the wall simulator. No. You might also want to turn off water levels if you're not playing a cleric, otherwise, if you don't have a potion, mage scroll, or an item, well, let's just say your adventure is over. Want a challenge though? Turn on the permadeath mode, this thing right here. If you die, you die. Not really recommended for your first playthrough though, or at all really. I had one instance where a button outright killed my character. I guess there's a chance for buttons to be trapped or something, I don't know. You press buttons to open up doors and hidden pathways in this game, so that was surprising for me. I guess that's one way to make an effective trap, just trap a button and just hope it kills an adventurer. Worked on me. But let's talk about the story, of which there is very, very little of. In fact, I could probably give it a shot in a sense or two, so here it goes. You're hired by a sorceress to go find a magical orb. When she divines the location of said orb, she immediately teleports you to the ancient dungeon to go find it. That's it. She hired the right guy though. Look how quickly he takes down this beast of a monster. Jesus, he must have maxed out all his stats in the character creator or something. But regardless, I want to talk about the world Dungeon Hack is set in. It's set in the Forgotten Realms, and for those of you out there who have played Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, and Neverwinter Nights like I have, then you're probably pretty familiar with the setting. For those who don't, the Forgotten Realms was set on the planet Toril on the continent of Faerun, or Farron, however you want to pronounce it. Baldur's Gate was set in the Sword Coast region, Baldur's Gate 2 in the Omnish region, Neverwinter Nights in, well, Neverwinter, Icewind Dale and Icewind Dale, and you know how it goes. It was a really big world too, with many continents like Karatur and Faerun. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was a lot of potential for more computer games, honestly. But alas, I mostly find the setting interesting because other than Baldur's Gate being my intro into the Forgotten Realms and D&D in general, I really enjoyed the Icewind Dale trilogy by R.A. Salvatore back in the day. But anyways, I probably don't even need to mention the Forgotten Realms, just thought it'd be cool to do so, because this game doesn't. And this isn't me criticizing lack of story or anything like that, it's fine. Dreamforge was going for a pure grid-based dungeon crawler. I get it, and as far as the game goes, it's pretty good. Gameplay is straightforward enough. There's no NPCs or shopkeepers to barter with, just you and a heck of a lot of monsters. And I gotta say though, I'm really liking the monster designs. I probably don't need to elaborate further on that, mostly because I just don't know what to say other than they look cool. But if you like what you see in this video, then there you go. I will say though that there's plenty of variety, and good thing too, as you've been doing a lot of fighting. And you don't need to take my word on that, just check out this list of monsters I've slain towards the end of the game. Good grief. The main character is a beast. But on top of the monster variety, the dungeon itself changes its design the further you go, and I'm pretty impressed that for the time, Dreamforge made the effort at not trying to bore you with its repetitive visuals. I honestly never felt bored the longer I played this game. Before I explain the gameplay though, or... Actually, I probably don't even need to explain it since you could probably just guess from watching, but I'll just play this part of the video for a few seconds. Yep, no music. Dreamforge probably ran out of room on their floppy disk, and for those who might not be aware, floppy disk was how we stored data back in the day before CD, DVDs, and Blu-rays came out. This particular one is 3.5 inches and held 1.44 megabytes of data, and Dungeon Hack released with 4 of them. Yeah. And just to put in perspective and for fun, Ultima 7 The Black Gate, just The Black Gate, biggest game of its time back in '92 I think it was, released on 8 5.25 inch floppies, then 6 3.5 inch floppies, then finally 1 CD, holding not just The Black Gate, but also Serpent Isle and both its add-ons, Forge of Virtue and Silver Seed, which today would be called expansion packs I suppose. We came a long way since then. But moving on though, I will say that you don't need to use the on-screen arrow keys to move around. You can press the numlock key to move around with a numpad. Unfortunately, there's no WASD movements, which is a shame, but oh well. But this is a D&D game, so I'm sure someone out there is thinking one question. What's a good class for this game? Well, I'll answer that, but I'll say I started with a paladin at first. I figured a warrior with some healing abilities would be a nice starting point. You don't get cleric spells until level 9 though, if I remember correctly, so I figured I'd tough it out until then. I was doing fine too until I ran out of food, which is not good, but whatever. I make it to level 5 and I encounter this red looking demon thing who holds you? Okay. I remember that effect from Baldur's Gate, which means I can't attack, and that's not good. Yeah, I'm reloading. Time to save scum. I know, it's lame, but I'll be fine. Okay, it's dead. I figure on this level I'll find some food, and hopefully the other enemies won't be too tough, but I was wrong. Meet this cool looking ghost warrior. Oh boy, he looks tough, and yep, he is. It takes a few blows to kill him, and for reference, I'm wearing the gauntlets of Fire Giant Strength, which sets my strength to a whopping 22. Yeah, and he still took like 3 or 4 hits to kill. Or send him back to the afterlife, at least that's where he's going, but I go from 97 hit points now to 75, so let's hope I don't run into more of them. I run into more of them. Great. I managed to destroy them somehow, but now I'm down to 48 hit points. Let's hope I can find some food so I can heal up and pray for spells. Alright, anything in here? No, just teleporters. Alright, wish me luck. Here goes nothing. Great. Not 1, not 2, but 3 ghost warriors. It was not even a fight. They absolutely wrecked me. At this point, my usual strategy of hitting and backing away or going around them is not going to work. And I didn't feel like going upstairs to use the healing station. Yeah, might be a good time to bring that up now. If you have no methods of healing, then these healing stations are your best friends. They require gold and silver coins, with gold healing a lot of health and silver healing a bit of health, which is still quite a bit. But this was something I should have relied on in the beginning instead of resting, but there you go, learn from my mistake. So, what's a good class? Well, I ended up restarting the game as a pure cleric, and I finished the game just fine. So I'd probably recommend that if you're like me and just don't like to multi-class. But if not, a fighter cleric, fighter mage, or fighter mage cleric would be the ideal options. However, I have done some reading and a pure mage or bard are viable options if you can find a vampiric touch scroll. Basically, with that spell, you'll never have to worry about hit points ever again, but you're at the mercy of RNG at that point. You also don't have to worry about unidentified items as you start with the improved Identify spell. On my cleric playthrough, I was absolutely swamped with magical items, and the only way to identify them is to find and use a scrying glass, which didn't frickin' drop for me until level 15. I was a bit bummed too at having to restart as a cleric because those gauntlets of Fire Giant Strength is one of the best items in the game. But do you know what happened? It actually dropped for me again on level 1 as a cleric. That's probably why I didn't get a scrying glass until much later too. Can't always have good luck, I guess. But why a cleric? Well, cleric spells are ultra handy in Dungeon Hack, as you can probably guess. But not only can you heal while resting, you can create food at any time once you obtain level 3 spells. So pretty much as long as it's safe to rest, you don't have to worry about food or health ever again, which is pretty awesome. But you still need to be careful though. Like, take this monster for instance. They hit hard, up to 40 points. For instance like this, just cast the Spiritual Hammer spell, level 2. Hell, cast 2 of them and go to town. This was a nice backup whenever I was struggling with some of the monsters in this game. This wasn't a strategy I came up with on my own though, but from reading guides and watching a video review. Now, take this Death Knight for instance. Really cool looking design too, but anyways, look at this. They cast fireballs for 80 points of damage. 80! What the deuce? For this, well, clerics have a protection from fire spells, so I cast that and yeah, now they're pushovers. Back to the grave with you. But seriously, 80 points? If you got unlucky with hit point rolls as you level up, one hit could probably kill you. But that's it regarding what kind of classes are good to choose. A paladin is likely viable too once you get access to cleric spells, but as far as fighter or thief goes, I'm not sure. I bet it's possible to beat the game with them, and I'm sure someone has, so maybe I'll try it out someday, who knows. But let's talk about some of the more annoying enemies. These wights here can drain your level and wipe out all your spells. Very annoying unless you can cast negative plane protection, which should work, someone correct me if I'm wrong. But if you do get hit, you need to cast the Restoration spell, which is a level 7 cleric spell. You won't get that for a while, so you may consider turning off undead creatures in the dungeon setting. Otherwise it's a game of saving and reloading. I left them on because I wanted to see the undead creature designs. And for a cleric, they became no problem at all once I found a unique mace that kills them one hit most of the time. There's also these Medusa enemies. You can probably guess what they do. Be sure to keep any petrification scrolls you find, that's all I'll say about them. But let's talk about some last minute hints and tips. Always clear as much of the map as you can, especially level 1. You find a grappling hook on level 1 and trust me, you'll need this. I fell in a pit on level 17 right here and look. Imagine if I didn't have a grappling hook. Yeah, I'd be pissed because that's the last floor of the game. The other reason is that there is always a unique enemy on each level that can sometimes drop equipment you can use. So that's always worth doing, always try to clear as much of the level as you can. Other than that though, Dungeon Hack is fairly easy unless you make it difficult for yourself on purpose or you go in blind. Now let's talk about its issues. One is how slow the game can get. This is likely not Dungeon Hack's fault though, it's probably a DOSBox issue. You can fix this by going in the config file and changing CPU cycles from fixed 8000 to fixed 20,000 or whatever you want really. I set it on 20,000 and it was mostly fine. Doing this though causes some monster attack sounds to get bugged out every once in a while. But I'm not sure if it's a DOSBox thing or me changing the CPU cycles thing. Worth bringing up, I think. The second issue is that saving your game is weird. For some reason you have to press the spacebar, type in your save, and then click enter. Otherwise it doesn't work. Probably a DOSBox thing too. Not the game's fault. Thirdly, you can't write notes on your map. Might not be such a huge deal, but it would have been nice to mark healing stations and such. In the meantime, keep a mental note or mark them on a notepad or something. Lastly, and might be a big lastly, no music. Again, this might not be a negative, just put on some fitting dungeon music or something while you get your dungeon crawl on. Lots of them on YouTube. I really enjoyed myself going through the different dungeon music on YouTube. Okay, so, is the game recommended? Is the game fun? I guess that really depends on how much you like D&D games, especially 2nd edition, or just dungeon crawlers in general, but I had quite a bit of fun with this one. In fact, after finishing the game as a cleric, I immediately started a bard character just to see how far I can go. Hopefully, some good mage scrolls drop for me, but so far, no dice. I'll likely have this one on my computer in the far future for replays. The fun in this game really lies in its character progression, accumulating magical weapons and armor, dungeon customization of course, and slaying a ridiculous number of monsters. I will say that if you're looking to buy this or put it on your wish list, don't search for Dungeon Hack on GOG or Steam, it won't show up. It's available under Forgotten Realms, The Archives, Collection 3. If you type in Forgotten Realms and just poke through the store page, you'll find it. Or just check the 2 links in the description page. That's probably easier. But anyways, that's it for this video. I think I covered pretty much everything I wanted to. Now, it's off to the void to go find something else to play. Farewell, and I hope your RNG goes better than mine.